Good morning, everyone. It is May 22nd, 2024. This is our second podcast, Coffee with and Chat with ClearScript. This is a follow-up to our webinar that we hosted back a little ways ago now, March 26th. I have a couple of our key ClearScript employees with us today, Nicole Christian and Bryan Milbert, who are both clinical account executives that led our webinar back in March 26th, and also are the key clinical account executives for different clients and books of business within ClearScript. So welcome, Bryan and Nicole, and thank you for your participation today.
Oh, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, I thought you both did a phenomenal job with the webinar. Had a number of emails and comments back from attendees that appreciated it, and some of which, forwarded questions to us for follow-ups for this podcast today, just as well as just giving overall thumbs up in terms of what we're doing, providing visibility to our clients. So thank you. Question number one, and these aren't assigned. I'll let both of you sort of use more of a tag team approach on this, so feel free to answer whichever of you feel you would like to do that or deem fit. Is there a way to look up what biosimilars have been approved for certain reference brands?
Yeah, Kyle, that's a great question. There's actually a free reference source that's being maintained by the FDA as these drugs are being approved. It's called the Purple Book. And that resource, if you Google Purple Book, can come up. It is a web-based search engine. And I did test it out today, looking up the drugs for the biosimilars that are available for Humira. And it is got a little bit of a lag. There was one that was just recently approved. So those do show up about a week or 2 weeks after they are approved, but they will come up there and they're color coded, so you know which ones are equivalent. And then there's also a resource for traditional and small molecules, which is called the Orange Book. Same things apply. There's the Orange Books available online as well. So you can always look up which drugs have generic equivalents, or sometimes there's ones that aren't exactly equivalent, similar to how biosimilars are a little bit different.
Nicole, great answer to that question. For me, as a non-pharmacist, right? Both of you are pharmacists, but for me as a non-pharmacist, is this a resource that's, easy for me to comprehend? Or when you get into terms like small molecule drug and Orange Book, it might seem a little more complex, but can you elaborate a little bit on what type of resource this is?
I can, yeah. So the Orange Book so that's the small molecule, or those traditional, like if you think to your cholesterol medications or your asthma inhalers, those drugs, those have been around for a long time. This resource has been available for a very long time. So that version of our drug resource is very much more complicated. The way the Purple Book has been structured is it's much more user friendly. So even though these drugs are more complicated and have a lot more science behind them, it's color coded. They're like Post-its on a screen. So if you do have a member that comes to you and says, are we sure, if you are so inclined to double check, is this Humira biosimilar? If those things come up, you can look at it. If, 4 more purple things come up that also say, when you search for Humira, those things are equivalent. It tells you right on the screen. So it's pretty intuitive. Perfect.
Question number 2, is it possible to determine how much biosimilar, X, Humira, for example, is it possible to determine how much that biosimilar is currently or going to save my plan?
Yeah, so like we discussed during the webinar, those savings from biosimilars are going to be stretched out and realized over a longer period of time. Unlike when we switch from a brand name tablet to a generic tablet, after a couple of months, there's multiple versions of that generic, and we can see the savings almost in real time. After about 3 to 9 months, the price drops dramatically. On the biosimilars, we have an example of Lantus, which is an insulin, has recently had a biosimilar version of itself come out, but it was a very small market. Only a couple versions of that biosimilar came out. We were able to track and see the pricing of that, and we were able to kind of see the price change in that and give estimates a little bit more clearly because there were fewer factors in the market that were impacting the changes of the savings, the competition of the product. Where we have Humira coming out, we have a lot more competition, a lot more factors. The cost is also a huge deal with this one. The cost of these biosimilars are astronomically larger than where insulin is at. So there's a lot more of a delta that we want to cover from that brand-ish price to those generic prices. So as far as the savings and the plan, it is more complicated for us to come up with a real savings number, but mostly due to that delta, like I'm saying, the amount of savings that can be seen and the amount of time that it can be experienced over and how long it might take that price to actually drop.
Good. I do want to point out, and I've sat in a number of QBRs for our existing business, but within the reporting, our QBR snapshots and your consultative approach, this is information that you would provide to our clients and in many cases prospects, to help guide them and provide information to make an informed decisions. So it wouldn't be a big reveal, I guess is my point. You would provide this sort of intel and insight throughout the course of your relationship with our clients, correct?
Exactly. That would be, along the way. We would be sharing a list of what's the preferred object or preferred drugs that are on the formulary, the list of drugs that are covered at any given time. It would never be a surprise. There would always be some forethought and foresight into which drugs would be preferred in the future, and members would be alerted to that fact as well as the brokers and clients. And oftentimes you can even see that original compound, like we're talking about Humira a lot recently, Humira may be preferred during the first part of that, say it takes 3 years to see that savings. Maybe during the first part, Humira will still be one of the preferred options for a member to take. You will know when it's still on the list, and if there's ever a time where we might say, the savings aren't there on the Humira anymore, we're going to switch to just these biosimilar options. There will always be full transparency there.
Excellent. Okay, question 3, which this is always confusing to me. Why is there different pricing on biosimilars of the same drug and from the same manufacturer?
Yeah, Kyle, I'll take this one. This is confusing, unless you have some understanding of how the market works. This is called a dual or high-low pricing strategy, and manufacturers use this for formulary placement because some formularies are built with different strategies. So, touch on the what we call the high wholesale acquisition cost, or wholesale acquisition cost is called WAC. We call that high WAC, high price, but also comes with a significant rebate. The manufacturer uses that lowest net of rebate cost, and it receives the most favorable formulary tier placement and possibly preference with the prior authorization criteria. So the lowest net of rebate cost gets formulary placement, and this kind of strategy is popular with plan sponsors because it allows them to spread the rebate savings across the whole formulary, so the whole formulary functions as a unit, as a aggregate net of rebate cost. So it's simpler in many ways for plan sponsors. And then there's a low WAC strategy where typically this is we call the unbranded, and this is a low WAC but without a rebate, and that's an attractive offering for those with high deductible plans where you just pay just the list price, so to speak. So that is why you see two different pricing for the same product. Really, if you take the high cost versus the low cost net of rebates, they're pretty similar. So it all comes out in the end, so to speak.
That makes sense. Question number 4, why do some formularies prefer certain biosimilar brands over others?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, when you see, for example, ESI or other PBMs when they release what their formulary choices are, I'm thinking Optum or CVS, they may have different mixes of biosimilars, and the reason why is because when PBMs negotiate with manufacturers, they tend to take a holistic or forest for the trees approach to formulary strategy. So they look how a certain product fits into the larger formulary ecosystem. So they would look at issues such as, does this manufacturer have other products on the formulary? Whether and generally you look at a manufacturer-wide portfolio. So it depends on if they have other products on the formulary in a favorable position. They may offer a better rebate for their entire suite. So you can have an impact beyond just the drug and the biosimilars in question. They can also look and see, does this certain manufacturer have enough manufacturing capacity to drive enough market share? Would they potentially run into a shortage? So market share is really, really important in the biosimilar space because they need to be able to produce enough to put enough pressure on other biosimilars and also the original reference brand. So that's an important consideration. And also, are there products in the pipeline from a certain manufacturer that may strengthen their offering or not? So in the end, to the plan sponsor and the member, it's really taking different paths leading to the same destination. So if you have a formulary with the reference brand, with or without certain biosimilars, and even if you have biosimilars without the reference brand, which is the original drug, it's really taking different paths to the same destination, which is the lowest net cost of therapy, if that makes sense.
That does. Last question, number 5. I hear CVS is removing brand Humira from its formulary. Is this true?
And Nicole, I think I'm on a roll, so I'll take this jump ball here. So yes, this is true. On April 1st of this year, CVS removed Humira, which is the reference brand, from its major national commercial formularies. There is more to the story if you look a little deeper into it. That CVS launched a subsidiary called Cordavis, I believe is how you pronounce it, which is a manufacturer which is co-branding Hyramaz, which is a Humira biosimilar, and they're co-branding it with Sandoz. So in a sense, that adds a bit more incentive to push that particular biosimilar. So what they're offering is they have a high price, as I mentioned before, they have a high price, high rebate Hyramaz from Sandoz. They also have a low price Hyramaz from Cordavis, which CVS will directly profit from that. And they have a low cost, what's called unbranded adalimumab, which is the word for the drug itself, low list biosimilar from Sandoz. So in the end, the clear beneficiary of this strategy is CVS, because they do have that extra incentive to steer away from the reference brand to their own wholly owned biosimilar. But what they have to offer may or may not be superior to other PBMs. It's just different. It's just a different offering. These are all the same biosimilar products. They have the same clinical effect. What is clever is that they're using the public misconception that any product with the reference or the reference brand Humira is inherently more costly than the biosimilars. So in saying that we're not going to have brand Humira on our formulary, it plays into where we're kicking that expensive reference brand off of our formulary, but in the end, the manufacturer can offer rebates which could potentially make a reference brand cheaper than the biosimilars. So it's, in short, don't be fooled by the marketing. It's just a more or less a marketing ploy, but CVS does have this subsidiary that's directly manufacturing one of the biosimilars.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know this isn't the forum to necessarily get on a soapbox, but it seems like a conflict of interest when the intent of a PBM is to obviously make members healthy and make sure everybody's safe and effective, but in addition to manage costs. And when you have a PBM that is also manufacturing a biosimilar and driving utilization of that, seems like that may be a bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kyle, because as as you and I well know that pharma manufacturers and the pharmacy benefit managers they counterbalance each other. So the PBMs control costs, but meanwhile the manufacturers, they're publicly traded, and they're one of their primary functions is to deliver returns to investors. So if you have both of them on the same side, you remove that potential cost constraint. So yeah, that is interesting to note, and it'll be interesting to watch how this plays out with CVS and Cordavis.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nicole, Bryan, once again, back in March, you both did a fabulous job on the biosimilars webinar. I know a number of questions have been emailed to us, and we've had a number of follow-ups with our current clients and prospects. Here are just 5 additional questions that came up today. Appreciate your time, and I also want to thank other folks behind the scenes at ClearScript that help put this all together and help distribute our message, the message that, especially with number 5, we're not the big 3 PBM. We're never going to be. We feel that our model and our mission fits better with the clients that we serve. And I think this is just an example of one of those highlights of what we're able to do for our clients. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Bryan. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this podcast. And until our next one, have a great day.